I'm just about to head down into the kitchen cellars. Let me know if you need anything, and whilst I'm down there, maybe you can tidy up the house a little bit because this place is a mess. Jokes aside, this place has been abandoned now for around 100 years. And before that time, it was the home of a pretty prolific local business owner called Titus Salt Jr. And when this place was eventually demolished, everything from the ground below, including these kitchen cellars, were just left here. And I know it's been empty for a long time now, so there's probably no food left down here, but I'm a little bit peckish. Ooh, an egg. Now there is obviously a lot more to the story than just the cellars of the kitchen, but I'll be totally honest, I don't want to stay down here. I don't really want to be in here at all. So let's head back above ground and I can tell you a bit more about this place. One of the reasons I don't really want to be here is because, my God, can you see the size of that? Now, call me a wuss if you like for not being a fan of spiders, but what is that? That's not a normal spider. Okay. Okay, we're free. As interesting as that is, I don't like being down there. And as you can imagine, there's quite a big story here, a big chunk of history. And this place is very heavily connected to a nearby village called Saltaire. You may have been there, or you may have heard of it because it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site these days. And the story begins with the father of the man who lived here, Sir Titus Salt. Now, this place is wild. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted by just how much of it is still here. You can even see the old fireplace over there. I do look a bit like I've been beaten up today, by the way. I'll tell you about that later on. It's not very exciting. I'll try and just get my good side for now. Now, in England in the 19th century, there was an enormous textiles boom, and Bradford, a local city, we're in Bradford district today, but Bradford was known as the wool capital of the world. Many factories there, huge amounts of business being done. And one of the mill owners there was called Titus Salt. Now, Titus was one of a couple of people experimenting at the time with trying to make cloth from alpaca wool. Sorry to pause the story. There's too many things to look at. So, he was experimenting with alpaca wool. Nobody was using alpaca wool at the time. And he was the person who succeeded in figuring out how to use alpaca wool to make good quality cloth at a profitable cost. And this discovery made him his fortunes. He ended up owning multiple mills in Bradford and eventually decided on a new project because one of the things he cared most about was the well-being and the working conditions of his factory workers and the community around him. So he had an idea to build a brand new mill in a new location and a brand new village to go with it. Does anybody know what cliff is, by the way? I guess local brick makers around the time. There's loads of these around. Maybe a dumb question. So Titus found a plot of land on the outskirts of Bradford district, built this gigantic new mill and a brand new village to go with it. The village and the mill sat alongside the River Aire, hence the name Saltaire. And this would be the new home of all the mill workers and their families. And it was a bit of a breakthrough. Nobody else was doing what he was doing. He cared so much about the well-being of all these people that the living conditions he created for them was just unheard of at the time. They had everything they needed, shops, schools, church, and he invested a lot of his own time, energy and money into trying to foster a really flourishing community, which is one of the reasons why his legacy to this day is so strong and prominent still. So there's a whole story there that we could dig into, but today we're more interested, for now at least, in his youngest son, Titus Salt Jr. What I couldn't figure out, by the way, at least one thing I couldn't figure out, there's a few of them, was why it was his youngest son that was given the name Titus. Because I think it was his fifth surviving son, so he had a number of other sons, but none of whom he gave the name Titus. So was there some kind of rule to bestowing your own name onto a son? Or did he just think, well, yeah, I like these first ones, but they're no Tituses. I'm going to wait for another one. Maybe the next one will be better. Well, this looks fresh. What's been happening here? Now, as far as I know, Everything in here is original. Sorry to keep stopping and starting the story, by the way. It's just so much to look at. The kitchen cellars that we were in a second ago were underneath that floor, I think. So maybe this was the stairs leading down into the kitchen. I'm just guessing, maybe totally wrong. So yeah, Titus Jr. as he became known. Now, whether it was just a coincidence, a self-fulfilling prophecy, or his dad just knew, he had a feeling, it would in fact be Titus that most followed in his father's footsteps. As a businessman, philanthropist, he did a lot for the local area. Much like his dad, he was involved a lot in charity, heavily involved in the local school system. He really cared, it seems, about trying to help his local community thrive and doing everything he could. And at the time, from the sounds of it, it was a bit of a breath of fresh air because there were a lot of wealthy business owners in Bradford at this time of this peak of the kind of textiles industry, but they weren't all giving back as much to the people. The people that were working hard most of the time in, let's face it, pretty nasty conditions. And where we're stood right now, you've probably already got a feel for the size of this place. This was Titus and his family's home. It was built brand new for them. They bought this plot of land and they built this enormous house. Nearby to Saltaire, let's check. I don't know if we can actually see it from here, but it's very close by. And the story goes, part of the reason this land was picked is because it was close enough to take a carriage ride from the house to Saltaire village and the mill. Titus would travel on the local coach road, which holds that name to this day. Nowadays, Coach Road is a residential area. Many people live there. Can we see Saltaire? Probably. Maybe. I need to bring some binoculars next time. Anyway, it's over there, I think. So what happened though? What's the story? Well, things didn't always go so well for Titus. At some point during his life, he had an idea to build a brand new school in Saltaire, a school of arts and science. And in order to cover the cost of this building, he needed to raise some extra money. So he came up with another idea to run an exhibition in Saltaire, to attract more people to the area and to raise enough funds to cover the costs. And it was pretty successful. It went quite well, raised some money. They even had some visits from royalty, but it didn't quite raise enough to cover the cost of the new building. And from what I can understand, money that would have gone to the local schools had to then be used to cover the cost of this new building. And apparently he took this very personally, it weighed heavily on him. And not so long after this, it's said that he was feeling unwell one day. He went home to this house, went and sat in the billiards room, and this is where he actually died of a heart attack. Not in this exact space, I don't think this is the billiards room, but there are floor plans for this in certain places online, so maybe we can find it. So Titus's passing was a big loss to the community. He left a very strong legacy, much like his father. Not quite as sizable though, but that would have been tough to beat. I read some numbers and I don't know the sources, so I'm not saying that it's not true, but it'd be great to verify it because it's incredible. Some people said that at his father's funeral procession, there was up to 100,000 people in attendance, which is wild. But he was a very, very substantial figure at the time, so, you know, who am I to doubt it? That wasn't the end to the story of the house, by the way. Things got a little bit weird after that, but before we get into that one, let's have a little look around and see if we can figure out what some of these rooms were. So if I take you back around to the entrance, I'll show you what I saw when I arrived. Now this is the entryway. Originally, you can sort of imagine it. There was a huge stone arch covering this road. Some of it still left, but not too much. So this is where you would have entered and seen a grand mansion. You can picture just the size of it as well. So we'll be walking into the forecourt. Kitchen and kitchen cellars over to the left, which is where we were earlier, I believe. I hope I'm getting all this right. There was a hall near the entryway. And then over to the right, there was a huge conservatory, which we'll go and have a look at. Oh, this must have been the outside as well. One of the remaining boundary walls. Let's have a little look. Now, according to the blueprints, this set of stairs went up to a workshop. Not so much today. You have to use your imagination. any spooky people out there, you might be wondering, is this place haunted? Well, let's get into the next story and I'll let you decide for yourselves. Now, this house went through a very weird chain of events after the Titus family left. There was 3 families that lived here in total before it was abandoned, and they all had a pretty unlucky time from the sounds of it. The first family was the Roberts family, Sir James Roberts and his wife and children. The namesake of nearby Roberts Park, in case you've ever been here or you live nearby. And according to the records, 3 of their 4 sons died of what's only listed as illness and accident. So a little bit vague, but a rough time for the family nonetheless. And James's wife eventually also died from the Spanish flu. So a pretty rough time for the Roberts family. Not the greatest start. Not too unheard of for those times. Obviously medicine nowhere near as advanced as it is today, and high rates of child mortality. So, okay, we can sort of get our heads around that. The next family though, the Gates family, Mr. and Mrs. Gates, well, they had a pretty rough time as well. Mrs. Gates died just weeks after moving in from, again, an unknown illness. Suspicious, right? Mr. Gates did a little bit better. He lived a few more years, dying at the age of 51. So you can kind of see the theme here. Maybe you can guess what's going to happen to the next family, the Hollins family, Arthur and Anne Hollins. Well, 9 months after moving in, Anne unfortunately passed away from pneumonia. Arthur did a little bit better. He lived a few more years, coincidentally dying at 51, the same age as Mr. Gates, the previous tenant. Just a coincidence, of course. And it did get me wondering. I'm certainly not one to try and spark up new conspiracy theories, but so many deaths in one location, even for that time period. You know, was there something about the house, the materials, that was contributing to these illnesses? Maybe not. It's pure conjecture, but I couldn't help think about it. So what we're looking at now is the old conservatory. This was a huge kind of glass greenhouse with plants running from the front to the back and a walkway down the middle. A lot of it survived. You can sort of imagine, looking down here towards what's left of one of the entryways in the house, just how big and grand it might have been. We've even still got some of the tile work. Would you call that tile? I don't know. Stonework running around the edge. And it's all been really well preserved. I don't know what this was, if that's been added by people. Well, we've got even more work here. Wow. So the original floor. Now, in terms of dates, this place was built in 1872. Changed hands a few times, as we mentioned, and it was eventually abandoned, I think, in the late 1920s. And it was empty for a little while. They tried to sell it, but obviously with a house of this size, there's only so many people, A, that could afford it, and B, that would want to buy it, be in the right circumstances. And so it never sold. And eventually it was just demolished. And as you can see, they did a pretty good job of demolishing the ground floor and the first floor, but a lot of things were left behind. And the story goes that around that time, some of the stone and materials from here were sold, and some were taken to Saltaire and used to repair parts of the mill and even the houses in Saltaire village. So if you live in Saltaire village, from the sounds of it, there's a chance that some of the stone in your house may have come from here. You can almost imagine just walking out of the house into this beautiful conservatory. It must have been absolutely massive when it was still standing. And as cool and interesting as it is today, wow, it would have been incredible to see it at the time. I did read that there was, I don't want to get this wrong, I think a boating lake, I feel like I'm making it up now. Some kind of water, either a moat, no, not a moat, a boating lake it must have been. I need to check this out. We've got more tile work here, running around the other exit from the conservatory. Now, in terms of what's going to happen to it from here, I don't know. I don't really know anything about this place, about the land, so what the plans are, I couldn't even speculate, to be honest. Will it still be here in 5 years, 10 years? It's anybody's guess. So for now, it's just slowly being reclaimed by nature and just kind of sitting here as a bit of a museum. And before we head out, let's have another little look around, see if we can find anything interesting. Look a bit closer at some of the ruins for anybody who's interested. Hopefully my eye doesn't look too nasty in the video, by the way. I'm trying to film from the other side. I don't know what's happened to it. It's not infected or anything gross. It's just really swollen at the moment. So I did consider waiting before filming this, but I thought, let's just do it anyway. So at this back side of the house, this is where the drawing room was. What is a drawing room? Can I take that literally? Or is that stupid? Would you draw it in there? Or is it another meaning for the word? I feel silly asking, but I'm going to be honest, I just don't know the answer. A bit further along from the drawing room, there was a library. Not much left to be seen of the library these days. Straight ahead here was a dining room, also towards the back of the house. Just up here it says that there was a butler's room and the servers' rooms. As we make our way back to the kitchen, and the kitchen cellars, of course. Upstairs was mostly bedrooms from the looks of it. Then we've got a scullery. Again, what is that? What's a scullery? I definitely don't have one where I live. We had a larder, a dairy room, wash house and drying room. So I guess all this side that we're looking at now is where the staff would have been based from the sounds of it. Staff were living here, washing the clothes of the homeowners, the Salt family, preparing the food, storing the food. What a cool place. So that's pretty much all I've got to show you and tell you today. Maybe we'll come back for another episode and actually head to Saltaire, because most of the time it's Titus Salt Jr.'s father, who gets the most recognition, the most airtime, for obvious reasons. So I thought today it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about Titus Salt Jr., especially because we can obviously explore the place that he lived in. So hopefully you found that interesting. Let me know if you've got any questions, or if you know something that we haven't talked about, please drop it in the comment section. And of course, thank you so much for watching, as always. Extra special shout out to the members on YouTube as well. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.